Last summer in a video, I gave you guys the logistical reasons as to why I live out of my car, being China and YouTube. If you're curious about that, you can check out that video. But I feel like there's a deeper reason why I live out of my car that I kind of avoided talking about in that video, but I think I'm finally ready to share it with you guys today. It will make more sense why I'm choosing to share this with you now in a moment, but just a little trigger warning before I get into the video. I will be discussing death and depression and things like that, so if that is something that will be triggering to you, I encourage you to come back to this video at a later date. So today's date is February 12th, 2024, and if you've seen my tattoo tour, then you would know that I have a tattoo on my wrist here that is February 12th, 2012, and that is the day that my dad died. It was 2 weeks after my 13th birthday. And I know this is the part where some people are like, oh, so you're a trust fund baby. No, my dad was a simple butcher in my local grocery store in my small town. So that's very much not the case, but everyone's entitled to make their own assumptions. I know that. And it was a life-changing moment for me, as people would expect. But I went through kind of phases of it. So at first, it made me very depressed. I was very angry at the world. I was like, why me? This is so unfair. Like, I love my dad. Why is he gone? And I remember just being so depressed, and I hated the world in general. And I started to just kind of disassociate and watch Netflix and stuff on my phone in my bedroom and not really want to do anything or talk about anything. And anytime someone wanted to talk about my dad's death, I would immediately be like, no, it's fine, like, I'm fine. My mom even tried to make me go to therapy, and I was like, no, I don't want to, which is funny for reasons that I'll talk about in a minute. But while I was disassociating in my bedroom, I also started watching travel videos on YouTube. And I really think that watching these travel videos on YouTube is what gave me the motivation to keep going. I mean, I was seeing a whole other world outside of my tiny perspective, and it really encouraged me to want to see more and not completely write off the world just because I thought that my life was unfair. Instead, it kind of made me see like, oh, there's tons of really cool things out there, and even though this really terrible thing happened to me, I still want to keep going, and I still want to like go see these things in the world. And funny enough, when I was doing my senior capstone project for my English class in high school, I did the whole project about how I plan to continue learning after high school by traveling, which I think is just so precious. Little did I know. But I also decided to continue learning by going to university. I went to the U of A, bear down, and I studied psychology, which I didn't really want to be a psychologist. I wanted to understand myself better and get to know all the crap that was going on in my brain and kind of work through that, which makes it funny that I refused to go to therapy before, because then I ended up just becoming my own therapist through my degree, which I don't recommend doing. If you can go to therapy, go to therapy. But I'm very grateful that I chose to study psychology, because not only did it give me a better perspective on my own mental health, it allowed me to look at my dad's death from kind of an adult, outer perspective. And instead of viewing it as this hurt child who felt like the world was unfair because they took her dad from her and just being angry at the world, I was able to see my dad's death as like, oh, he definitely struggled with depression for a lot of his life. And instead of reaching out and getting help and doing things that would improve his life and make him happier, he just chose to drown himself in alcohol. And in a way, the alcoholism is what contributed to his health problems, which then caused his early death in his late 40s. I was better able to understand where the alcoholism was coming from and the depression that was behind it. Also, while I was in university, I took a course called The Psychology of Death, Grief, and Loss with Dr. Mario Francis Connor. If you go to the U of A and if you're taking upper level psychology classes, I highly, highly recommend this course. It was life-changing for me because it helped me reframe even more my perspective on death in general, not just my dad's death, but like death in life. And the fact that we all die, and it's something that we all deal with, and it's not something to be ashamed of or try to hide from or try to not talk about. Like, it's something we all go through at some point in time. For me, that just so happened to be when I was 13 years old with my father, but a lot of people have different encounters with death at different periods of their life, and I think that this course was really helpful in reframing my negative perception of death into a more positive one. I also took another course that was called Spirituality, Psychology, and the Mind with Dr. Oberman. Also amazing course if you have the chance, highly recommend. It really reshaped my view of the meaning of life, which sounds really deep for a psychology course, but technically it was also a religion course, religion, philosophy, and psychology. It counted for all three. So I think those two classes alone really helped change me as a person and helped me become who I wanted to be and who I am today. And if you're thinking to yourself, Alana, you have a whole psychology degree, why don't you use it? Why do you choose to live in your car? I do use it, and that's in my Mind on Yoga Academy. So that's where I take psychological research papers talking about the psychological benefits of yoga and explain them to you in simple man's terms, not research paper terms. Fun fact, one of my other favorite classes was the research analysis class, where we just took research papers, analyzed them, and gave the main points. So I do that in the Mind on Yoga Academy and give you guys all of the scientific facts about yoga and how it's super important and beneficial for your mental health. And I also give you yoga classes, breathworks, and meditations to help you practice what you're learning. So if you're interested in learning more about the psychology of yoga, that will be linked down in the description. But I will always be grateful for my past self for choosing to study psychology and choosing to unpack my dad's death and choosing to dive deeper and not hide from all of the crap that was in my mind. Because the other option was to just sit with my depression and not do anything about it and eventually end up in a similar position as my dad. And so as you can imagine, I learned a lot about myself through this process, but the main takeaway that's important to this video and why I live in my car is tomorrow's never guaranteed. And I don't want to wait and live my life for retirement that I might not ever get to. I mean, my dad was 47, 48, so nowhere near retiring. He was just a simple butcher. So that whole mentality of wanting to live for the now and not wait for my 60s to truly live my life is what then inspired me to move out of my apartment and sell everything that I owned except for this car and travel, because why not? YOLO, I guess. And also, at my dad's funeral when I was 13, they played the song Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw. And even to this day, I can't listen to that song without crying. I'm gonna cry thinking about it. Because I feel like that's exactly what my dad would have wanted me to do, is live my life as if I am dying. Because fun fact, we're all dying every single day. That might be a very stoic take, but live like you're dying, because you are. And so that thought also helps motivate me to live for the present and not live for the future or the what ifs or the would haves or whatever. And everyone's version of live like you were dying, it will look different. I mean, not everybody's going to be like, oh, I'm dying, so I want to live in my car. That's not what I'm saying. But for me, living like I'm dying means to live simply, not get so caught up in all the extravagant, unimportant things in life, but remember to live simply and enjoy the present moment. And I love living simply by having the freedom to drive anywhere that I want to while living in a small car, and having the freedom to just go be out in nature and create. And the fact that this is my job now just makes me emotional again. But when I think about how I want to live my life, this is it. And I think it's also because when I look at my family, my grandpa on my dad's side drove from the East Coast all the way to Alaska, camping in the back of his truck to go hunting when he was, alive. And also on my mom's side, I mean, they would go on long road trips in their VW bus and just sleep in the back of the bus. And also, I remember my dad telling me when he got older and could retire, he wanted to just go live in the middle of nowhere in a cabin in the woods in Montana and be a hermit. So it's definitely in my blood to live simply and enjoy road trips and enjoy being out in nature. I also grew up camping, so this life just kind of makes sense for me. And I even remember when I went to Montana myself for the first time this year and I went car camping up in Glacier. I remember just being overwhelmed with emotions sitting by Lake McDonald thinking like, oh my god, I'm like low-key like living my dad's dream. And that, I don't know, to some people they just look at my life and they're like, oh, like you live in your car, what a low life, lazy bum. But living in my car is what gives me the freedom to be close to nature and be close to my family's roots and get closer to living a life that truly brings me joy instead of just doing what I think I should do because it's what society tells me I should do. Like, that wouldn't make me happy. And so I'm doing what I think is best to put me on a path to happiness. Do I plan to live this simply in such a small car forever? No, hopefully not. But regardless of what I live in, I do plan to continue being close to nature and prioritizing the simple things and prioritizing the present moment. And if you're watching this video and thinking to yourself, man, that would be really cool to get closer to nature and grounded into the present moment and like be in a community with people who think this way, hey, that's why I'm creating Grounded Retreats. So if you haven't heard, Grounded Retreats is my yoga retreats company, and we are hosting our first women's retreat ever in June of 2024. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, I will leave all of the information down in the description box. I did have to take notes and organize my thoughts for this video so that I wasn't all scatterbrained and emotional, but I just want to read you this last little part that I wrote. My dad's death at 13 taught me to be independent and to be brave enough to go after the life that I wanted to live instead of listening to other people's opinions because it's not their life, it's mine. And I feel like the fact that making these videos is now a part of my job is just an indicator that I am on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. It's okay. It might not always make sense or be the easiest way to live, but it feels right for me. And I know that my dad would be proud of that, even though I live in a Honda Accord. If you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to the deeper reason why I live in my car, and I'd be curious to know, what do you think makes you you? Like, what inspires you to be yourself in life? I love reading the comments on my long form videos and getting to know you guys a little bit better because all of y'all who watch my long form videos are the kindest people. So I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe down below. That helps me out. And I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye.